Welcome to the Impressa Era podcast, a realm where intuition flows through real life and your personal power is celebrated. I'm your host, Queen Impressa, and together we'll explore tarot, self-mastery, sensuality, and aligned growth. Now take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and let's get into it. Hey besties, welcome back to Impressa Academy. Grab your tea, your water, your emotional support snack. I don't care what you bring, but just get comfortable because today's conversation is one that's been sitting on my spirit again. And I just want to say thank you again for listening to the Impressa Era podcast. We are on episode number 20 today, which I'm so excited about. I think we're going to be closing out the season here soon, so that's super exciting. And also, happy Pride Month to everyone involved in the acronym and all of the allies. We love you, we hear you, we see you. You are welcome and you are loved here always. And today we're talking about spiritual red flags that nobody talks about. Now, before anyone gets defensive, starts clutching their crystals, or prepares a strongly worded Facebook post, let me say this. This episode is not about attacking anybody's beliefs. It's not about saying one spiritual path is better than another or about telling you who to follow or who not to follow. It's truly about discernment. And there's one thing I wish more people talked about in spiritual spaces, and that's discernment. Because somewhere along the way, a lot of people learned how to pull tarot cards, manifest, cleanse their energy, charge their crystals under the blue moon, but nobody taught them how to identify manipulation when it's wearing a spiritual outfit. And baddies, manipulation absolutely can wear a spiritual outfit. Sometimes it's a white robe. Sometimes it wears a crystal necklace. Sometimes it speaks in affirmations. Sometimes it hides behind the phrase, I'm channeling a message. And that's what we're talking about today. Because your intuition deserves the protection, and so does your wallet and your peace. And honestly, your common sense deserves it too. So I want to start off with a confession. When I first started my spiritual journey, I thought everybody who sounded confident knew what they were talking about. Relatable? If somebody spoke with certainty, I automatically assumed they must be gifted. Or if they had thousands of followers, I assumed that they were trustworthy. Someone used big spiritual words, I also assumed they are so enlightened. And let me tell you, life humbled me real quick. Because one thing you'll learn is that confidence and wisdom are not the same thing. Some of the wisest people you'll ever meet speak with humility. Please take one of the biggest examples of our generation being Beyonce, okay? But one of the best performers of all time. And some of the loudest people you'll ever meet are covering up the fact that they don't know nearly as much as they claim. So the first red flag I want to talk about is what I like to call the spiritual celebrity syndrome. And these are people who act like they have every single answer, every solution, every prophecy, every truth. They never say, I could be wrong, or use your discernment. Everything is presented as an absolute fact. Now let's think about that for a second. Even experienced tarot readers, such as myself, can interpret cards differently. Psychics can receive information differently, and even healers can have different perspectives. So why would anybody claim to have the one and only truth? The moment somebody starts acting like your intuition is less important than theirs, that's a problem. Because the purpose of spiritual guidance should be empowering others, not dependency or codependency. A good reader should help you trust yourself more. They're not going to try and convince you that you need them for every life decision. And if you feel like you need someone's permission to make a choice, you've handed them entirely way too much power. Now let's talk about one of my least favorite trends that I see everywhere on social media, which is fear-based spirituality. Y'all, can we get into it? Because if I see one more video saying someone is jealous of you, someone's sending an evil eye, or wants to see your downfall, I'm going to need to crash and take a nap. Because listen, can people be jealous? Absolutely. Can people send negativity? Sure. But if every single message you consume leaves you feeling scared, anxious, and convinced that everybody around you secretly hates you, that has nothing to do with spiritual growth. That's anxiety with a crystal beside it. I need somebody to hear that because spirituality should help you feel empowered, not constantly afraid. But here's the thing that also no one talks about. Fear sells. Fear gets clicks and engagements and comments and keeps people coming back for answers. But healing that inside of you requires honesty. Sometimes the answer isn't that someone cursed you. Sometimes it's as simple as you being exhausted or avoiding a difficult situation or you're grieving or honestly sometimes that you're just human. Another thing I've noticed is that people often become more afraid after entering spiritual spaces. Think about that. Shouldn't healing make us feel safer and more connected? Yet some people become terrified of everything. Every bad day becomes a spiritual attack, or every disagreement becomes the evil eye, and every setback becomes some curse that was placed upon their ancestors. And every inconvenience becomes Mercury retrograde's problem. And honestly, Mercury must be tired of being blamed for everything. So at some point, we have to ask ourselves, am I being spiritually aware, or am I becoming spiritually paranoid? Because those are two very different things. Now let's get into a spicy one. Spiritual superiority. Oh, this one gets under my skin because it sounds fancy when people say things like, I'm too evolved for that, or they're low vibration, or they're not awakened yet. And please, let's be humble. The universe has a funny way of teaching lessons like this. The same person talking about being high vibration today might be having a complete emotional breakdown next week because we're human. Growth is not linear, and neither is healing. Nobody graduates from being human. Nobody. Not me, not you, not the guru on TikTok or the spiritual influencer with 500,000 followers. Literally nobody. And if your spirituality is making you feel superior to other people instead of more compassionate towards them, something has gone sideways. Now, another red flag that doesn't get enough attention is people who are obsessed with appearing healed. And you know exactly who I'm talking about. It's the people who claim they've completely transcended anger or sadness or fear. And honestly, and really, because you're still on earth, babe. The goal isn't to become emotionless. The goal is to become emotionally aware. And that is a big difference. Healthy people still get angry, they still get their feelings hurt, and they still get triggered. The difference is they take responsibility for those emotions instead of pretending they don't exist. And honestly, I trust people more when they're honest about their struggles than when they're pretending to be perfect. Now let's talk money, because everybody gets weird when we talk money, but we're going to do it anyway. Because I believe spiritual practitioners deserve to be compensated. Readers deserve payment. Teachers deserve payment. Energy workers and creators deserve payment. However, there is a difference between offering a service and creating dependency, like we talked about before. So if every reading ends with, you need another reading, you need another ritual, another cleansing, an emergency session, that's worth paying attention to. Because eventually you'll have to ask, am I actually being empowered or am I being kept on a treadmill? And like I've said before throughout this whole episode, a healthy practitioner should want you to become stronger and empower you, not for you to become dependent on them. All right, and finally, I want to talk about what I believe is the most important spiritual skill of all. So it's not tarot, mediumship, manifestation, astrology, candlework, spellwork, psychic gifts, right? It's discernment. Because discernment protects you in every single room that you enter, and it protects your heart, your energy, your time, and your peace. Discernment will always ask you, does this feel true to me? Does this align with me? Does this support my growth? And most importantly, am I abandoning myself to believe in this? Because the moment you stop trusting yourself, you become vulnerable to anybody who sounds convincing enough. And that, my beautiful baddies, is exactly why discernment is so sacred. So before we wrap up today's episode, I know it's a short one, I know, but we're going to be closing out the season soon for the Impressa Era podcast. So they're getting a little bit shorter here, but I want you to remember something. You don't need to be afraid to be spiritual. You don't need to give your power away to be spiritual. You don't need to know everything to be spiritual. You don't need to follow every trend to be spiritual. And you do not need to agree with every teacher to be spiritual. Your relationship with spirit, your ancestors, your intuition, and your higher self is allowed to be personal. It's allowed to change and evolve, and it's allowed to include questions. In fact, questions are often where the deepest wisdom starts. So trust yourself. Ask the questions. Stay curious and stay grounded. And remember that the most powerful voice you'll ever hear on your spiritual journey may not be the loudest one in the room. It might be your own. So until next time, baddies, stay alert, use that discernment, and make sure that the decisions you're making for the future you start today. Bye, lovelies.